Hello and welcome to episode 28 of the NF Show, the official NF Magazine podcast. I'm your host for this week, Evan Campbell, and with me is not one, but two amazing guests. First is the always wonderful Noah Ward.
Thank you very much, Evan. Hello, everybody.
And also with us is, for the third time actually, is Daan Koopman, who's from Go Nintendo, Nintendo World Report, and then we'll say most importantly right here, NF Magazine.
Hello. Greetings, people from North America. I am a European.
Yep, he's across the pond. We were able to fish him over and get him on this podcast. It's always great to get the European take for the NF Show. But you don't just bring us the European take, you also give us a little Japanese flavor because you have systems from over there as well, right?
I have systems from all regions, really.
Don's got all of the gadgets, all the gizmos, and he's been playing all of the games. That'll be a major portion of this episode of the NF Show. He's been playing, I think, 10 to 15 games that he can talk about. We'll have a supersized edition of what we're playing, and it's always fun to talk about all the cool games out, and some of them are only out in Japan, so it's always cool to learn about those. We'll also have some news tidbits this week like we do most of the time, and finally we'll wrap up the show with your amazing feedback. And then as a little side game, you can see if my internet will cut out at all this time. It cut out twice last week with Lucas, and now with me hosting, this could really make things go haywire. So keep your fingers crossed out there, all you live audience members. And if you're listening to this from iTunes or the audio version, I bet Noah makes it seem seamless, like I never left in the first place, because he's brilliant like that.
Oh, I wish that I did that last week, but I didn't because the conversation was just too weird. It would have been really abrupt. So they got to hear all about it last week too, unfortunately.
Noah is a guy you can build upon.
Yep. All right, well, let's start with some good news, especially for Square Enix, and I have to believe Nintendo, too. Nintendo 3DS exclusive Bravely Default has hit the million sales mark.
Yes.
And I think, most importantly, and hopefully Square Enix and Nintendo get the picture here, 600,000 of those sales came from the West, actually. That'd be Europe and North America.
I think that's great news. Bravely Default has gotten a lot of positive, glowing appreciation in the West. There was a time where, like, hopefully it's going to come out. It did, and we know that there's Bravely the Second around the corner, so that bodes even well for us to get the sequel over here. And I'm hoping that the sequel addresses some of the complaints that I heard repeated by a lot of people about the first game, that the end game Bravely Default can get a little repetitive. You're fighting the same bosses over and over and over. It gets a little grindy, which all RPGs have. But the other message that I think is great is that Bravely Default was cited as returning a lot to the classical roots of Final Fantasy, what Final Fantasy games used to be. So hopefully that's an encouragement, if not only to Square Enix, but to other developers out there to go and pursue this RPG niche, because it's still definitely lucrative and popular.
Well, it's not like they did it like a single time. They also did it as well with the same developer did it with Final Fantasy, the Four Heroes of Light.
Yes.
Yes.
I don't know. Do you know how well that one did? Did that one sell as well?
I don't know. It has been too long ago to remember, but I do remember that liking as well. But this is, I think, this one sold marginally better overall.
I'm sure it helped too, at least here in North America. And Don, you can enlighten us about Europe. And Nintendo published it here and put some of their marketing muscle behind the title, which always, I believe, helps when you're trying to sell a Nintendo game. But I think it's also impressive that it doesn't have the Final Fantasy name. This is a totally new IP that was able to manage such great sales here in the West. And I think it shows that there is an appetite for JRPGs in North America and Europe.
Yeah, the thing is with the game, they originally wanted to call it actually a sequel to Four Years of Light, and in some regards, I'm happy they went with an original title because it shows that it can sell on its own merit without having the branding of Final Fantasy.
Yeah, definitely, and it's something as Nintendo gamers, for all three of us, we want to see more of that, more original titles, because it can really easy, even though Nintendo puts out really fantastic titles, it feels like you're playing games from very familiar franchises, which can create fatigue just playing in those same universes time and time again. So it's really cool to see that. Another game that I wanted to bring up, some more good news for the Wii U. There have been quite a few indie announcements of games coming as the indie scene on the eShop continues to pick up. But one I'm excited for because I love the sequel, and it was a launch title for the Wii U, and that is Trine Enchanted Edition is coming to the console. And it's from developer Frozen Byte, who is a Finnish developer, and I've got to say, I'm pretty excited. It's going to have online multiplayer installed to it, and it's going to use the Trine 2 graphical engine.
I think Trine is something that I don't know if enough people have discovered it, but it just has a really neat charm. It can be very addictive in that it's kind of like a puzzle platformer that you can play as a single person, kind of Lost Viking style. At least Trine 2 was, where you're switching between characters to get through these platforming challenges. But then we can go back in, and those of us who've only played Trine 2 can go and see the first one with the upgrades. It sounds excellent. And that's something that we are long overdue to do, Evan, because I remember you telling me that we needed to play Trine 2, and it didn't happen.
You have Trine 2?
I don't have it on Wii U, unfortunately. I have it on PC.
Okay. Well,
Trine is actually kind of exciting. What actually was more exciting for me this week, like indie announcements wise, was that Curve Studios is really pushing the Wii U. Like they've used to do fluidity for Nintendo, and now they're publishing through their Curve Digital program 4 games to the Wii U. And the one I'm really excited for is Lone Survivor, which is a 2D pixelized horror game, which I played on PlayStation Network and on PC. But now that's coming to Wii U, which I'm super, super excited for.
Yeah, and I know people are excited. They're also bringing over the Swapper, which is a game that's coming to PlayStation next month, but it released on PC last year that people are excited about. And then on top of that, they're developing at least initially a Wii U exclusive and Stealth Incorporated 2, which is kind of a funny story because the original Stealth, I believe, was a Steam and PlayStation title.
Well, the development, they say, is now done. They're only squashing bugs at this point.
That's really awesome to hear.
So it's coming. So it's coming really soon, hopefully.
Yeah, it's really exciting to see. It felt like we thought the eShop kind of invasion was going to happen back in February between Donkey Kong and Mario Kart 8, and everything kind of slid back. But I feel like now that we're in the dog days of summer, it's week in and week out we're seeing original titles, and it's really helping elevate the Wii U, especially when retail-wise we're not seeing too much. We're all kind of in a holding stance until Hyrule Warriors comes out to our respective territories.
Right, yeah.
Which looks great as well. But that wraps up our news tidbits. Let's get into the exciting stuff, what we're playing. We'll start with Noah and me just because we want to give Daan basically his own section. I'm really excited to get into those. But Noah, it doesn't look like you've been playing too much. You've just ordered a game that I loved.
Yeah. Evan has been updating me what he's going to say about Guacamelee, and incidentally, since I know he's going to be complaining about a game that I like, I told him that, well, I ordered Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, and I look forward to complaining about that for him in a future show. I won't do it just to do it. I mean, if I really like the game, I won't try to be spiteful just to cause a ruckus.
I kind of want to make a side note here. The last time I was on the show, we talked about Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, and I said you should buy it as well. So you finally did.
Yeah, I had a coupon or a $20 certificate at Best Buy that I needed to use, and so I was just trying to choose between all these games. There was a game on another system that I was considering, and since it's another system, I won't name it. And it was either that or Donkey Kong Country or Kirby Triple Deluxe. And so, I'll go with Donkey Kong Country.
That's a difficult choice. I both like those platformers a lot, Kirby Triple Deluxe and
Kirby. I haven't played Kirby Triple Deluxe, but just heard great word of mouth. People,
Yeah.
and it seems like it's like kept up too. This many months after release, people keep talking about it. I think you're in for just a visually and oral treat with Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. I could see you. It is a difficult game, and it can cause some frustration. So I could see that, but I just don't want Noah to be a revisionist here of history and make me seem like I'm always complaining about the games he likes, because he's had no problem having to poop on basically Mighty Switch Force, which I loved and I've played on 3DS, and also over the weekend we did test out a game on another system that I wish was for Wii U, Destiny, which Noah immediately was like, nah, I don't know, this game's not that great. So don't let him act like I'm the negative Nancy here.
Yeah, and then you said to me, like, I think you just like to say you don't like games that other people like. That's not true. There are plenty of games that I like that Evan doesn't like. So that's good, because it gives us a balanced type of palette to go
And it
through.
gives the show a comedic edge.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
It's really edgy, a little passive-aggressive edgy. Well, I am not going to necessarily be super negative on Guacamelee Super Turbo Championship Edition. Noah always makes sure to spell that out in the notes when I leave it off. I've been playing that, and I've put in a considerable amount of time. And it's not that I dislike the game. I just don't really have much of a. I'm indifferent to it, I guess is the best way to put it. It's a Metroidvania title, but there's not anything special to it. Like, and I think I talked about this last week. The visual presentation doesn't do much for me. I think the writing's subpar, and the Star Wars references and other video game references, I'm over that in general. I'm not trying to just take it out in this game. I just find it kind of lazy writing to just kind of use those to show it's almost like trying to show your nerd cred or something like that by using them. And it just feels bland to me overall. And I think a lot of people love that visual spice, the luchadors and everything else. And to me, it's like going through the motions overall in general. And getting the power-ups, they just feel like minute changes on the brawling aspects. And the brawling, it feels like the enemy diversity is very limited. You're just playing against the same baddies over and over again. So I personally don't get what all the fuss is about, but I can understand. I'm guessing it does a lot. No, you kind of talked about this last week, that you really enjoyed the presentation and musical stylings of the game. I'm guessing that bumps it up considerably.
Because otherwise there would be a huge deficit.
No, I don't mean it like that.
Of the game.
But I'm saying that you enjoy being in that world, and that's something for me. It's not that I don't enjoy it, but I'm just kind of meh.
Yeah.
Sure, whatever.
Yeah, and I think that you could sum up some of the special moves as basically you get an extended punch to the side, and then a body slam, and then an extended punch up. But hopefully you'll get through the whole game if you're listlessly and apathetically proceeding through it. And I think you'll like some of the last dungeon, and the last boss has some nice dungeons. What do you think of the boss battles, speaking of?
The brawling just, once again, it just feels okay. Everything feels, it's executed and done to satisfaction. And I know that they're doing some unique flares with the world changing and stuff like that, but overall it's just like, yeah, they did it, but yeah, they did it. Like, there's nothing more there. It's basically, I'm just not feeling, it's not resonating with me. Yeah. And it's not like I'm playing and I'm like, oh, this game's absolute junk. Like, I can't believe that. And I'm definitely the minority. I realize that. I feel like, not just from you, but if you look at reviews on the web, if you probably talk to other people on NF Magazine, have absolutely adored it. But it for some reason just doesn't do it for me for those reasons. But I will play through it. I try to do a thing where if I start a game, I play through to the end. That's something that we talked about at great length last year. But yeah, in general, it's an average game for me. It doesn't come close to kind of scratching that Metroid itch and coming close. Like, I just played Metroid Fusion earlier this year, and I just think those two games are on totally different levels for me.
That makes sense. Did you get to play it, Daan?
I didn't play much of it, to be really frank. I have it free on PlayStation Plus, and I downloaded it on my Wii U, and I barely played it. I really like the style of it, and I really like the music and all the aesthetics, but I have not played much of it.
Okay.
Maybe.
Evan, do you think you would call yourself someone who like to go against the flow and go against the grain just cause?
No, I don't think so.
I'm just giving you a hard time.
I was gonna say, if that was the case, I really enjoyed the Destiny beta, and I found myself thinking, I wish this was on Wii U multiple times. I mean, I found that for a long time, but I feel like a lot of people may not enjoy that game, but are going against the grain with that title too. But no, I've been giving it a fair shot. It is true that
Yeah.
I went into Guacamelee with it. From the get-go, I saw it, and it didn't do it for me. I mean, I feel like there's just some games that you look at visually that people love, and you're just like, nah, that's just not my style. It's not my cup of tea or whatever. But
Yeah.
it got such positive word of mouth, and it's a big eShop title. I wanted to give it a chance. So I'll finish it. I feel like I'm far enough along. They're not going to throw anything at me that I'm just like, it clicks, and I'm like, oh.
No, probably not. No.
This is it, so.
And along those lines, I would say that an upcoming game that I'm definitely in that camp of, I've seen it, I keep seeing more commercials, keep seeing more information, but I'm definitely not interested in Hyrule Warriors whatsoever. And I do not foresee that changing. I do not see myself getting it. And it's just, we're all people with our own individual tastes, and some games work and some games don't.
Right,
and, if you have other games, I mean, you've played many others that you've liked, and there's been others that, I mean, I'm thinking of indie titles are rolling through my mind that you've played and you reviewed for the magazine, so on and so forth, and some just didn't work for you, and I think that it's great when we can come to an agreement. It's like, yeah, we both love Rusty's Real Deal Baseball. Who would have thought? And then some things we just have to disagree on respectfully.
And not respectively in the future.
When we're off the show.
Yeah, we're off the show. It's just all bets are off.
Oh, it's not my show now.
But yes, enough about us. There's so many games that Daan has been playing, and so excited to start. He has some so far Japanese-only games like Kirby Fighter Z, which is actually part of Kirby Triple Deluxe, but they kind of took that mini game out and made it a standalone game. Plenty of indie titles like Super Toy Cars and Wooden Sen'Sey, which I know a lot of people have been looking forward to. And then there's kind of diamonds in the rough like Transformers Rise of the Dark Spark for 3DS, which WayForward actually developed. So Daan, where would you like to start from this lengthy list?
So let's begin with what you just started with Kirby Fighter C and DDD's Drum Dash C, because I downloaded those almost a week ago now. Those came out in Japan a week ago as standalone eShop titles, and those games were originally in Triple Deluxe. What Kirby Fighters is, once again, it is a fighting game, a sort of Super Smash Bros.-esque game with items and stuff, but you have like one set ability of Kirby, and you fight as that set ability through various stages and try to defeat other Kirbys and other enemies along the way, which is a thing they added because it used to be only Kirbys. And the interesting thing about Kirby Fighters is they made like two really significant changes to that game, and one is like every part of like that campaign where you go as one set ability, go for all the stages, it's a lot larger than it used to be. And they put a lot more variety. Like there are more stages based on classic games. They throw in like for a loop. Yeah, at the end I had to fight like on the Smash Bros. Melee stage from Kirby, and actually defeated a whole bunch of fake King DDDs. Cool. It's actually really fun. And if you complete one of those trials, the abilities actually get like the set costume actually gets a new special attack that you can use in like a later, more difficult one.
Yeah.
So they added new attacks, they added new abilities. I think they added also 2 new power-ups that you can play as through that game. So there's a lot of more variety there in that package. But on the flip side, that's not really the case with DDD's Drum Dash C. The original had like 5 stages, and it's now been upgraded to 7. So that is not a lot. And the
Yeah.
only thing they've really added to that game is a hard mode, which you could say, well, that's fun playing as because it's more challenging, but I say it's the exact say 7 songs all over again, and what you really gain from it.
Huh.
And considering that they're both equally priced, like both are 800 yen, so $8, you can't really say that DDD Drum Dash Z is that worth that money.
That's pretty crazy. I mean, I guess for Kirby Fighter Z, if they're adding that much more content over the base game, but people always talk about Nintendo. I guess honorable may not be the right word, but they try not to nickel and dime you supposedly with DLC. But it's weird that they're pulling out a mini game and barely adding anything and asking $8 for it on the eShop.
Yeah, most of the songs come also from Triple Deluxe. I think there's only 2 that don't come from that game. So I don't know. It didn't do really much for me. Kirby's Fighter Z though, I've been playing that nonstop. That's really fun.
Is there
And
like local multiplayer? Like, do
oh
you
yeah,
need?
oh yeah. I think all of them needs a copy, but because the price is so much lower than the base game from Kirby Triple Deluxe, that's way more convenient to do so.
Definitely.
I wonder if in the
Um,
case of the music game, they're just trying to capitalize on the fact that that genre is so underserved, and maybe they don't want to deal with trying to find new music or license things, and they
I
just think, hey, we can throw that out there because music fans are so desperate for new games.
I guess so, but at the other hand, when you have a market that competes with themselves, because the only big game in that genre that they have out is what's the Harmonite. Then if you compare those two, then it's a kind of an issue because Harmonite has way more value than like this game that only has 7 levels and 2 different difficulty settings.
Yeah, yeah.
But enough about those two. So if it ever come to the West, consider Kirby Fighters, but not so much Drum Dash. Or stick with Kirby Triple Deluxe if you have that. So the second game I've been like mostly playing is there's a new version of the Demperman. Who knew? Hey, it's
And
the fourth. It's a
Yes.
free-to-play game now.
It's the fourth one actually, right?
It's the 4th one, but they don't call it the 4th game. They call it in Japan it's called Denpa Ningen no RPG Free or Denpaman Free. And what they have done is, and I'm gonna be a bit rough on the game and say they kind of removed the charm from the game. And what I mean with that is they actually nickel and dime you up to a certain degree. So in the game they introduced the jewels, and for these jewels you actually have to pay for. There's 100 yen for one jewel, and then it ranks up to a certain amount. And you can pay up to max of like 5,000 yen or something ridiculous like that. And
Wow.
yeah, and what you can do with those gems. So if you are in a boss battle or in a regular battle, any battle, and you die, you can pay a gem and be right back into the game. All your Dempermen are back up, and you can continue where you left off. Special Dempermen, you need those gems for. You want to reset your Wi-Fi timer so you can get more Dempermen buggies. Have to pay that gem for. Want to get new elements in the game. Have to pay that gem for.
Oh man.
So you're gonna have to pay at some point. There's no way to earn any of this just through the
Here's the
in-game.
thing. Here's the thing. Because the characters don't level normally as you would expect from another Demperman game, they don't level as quickly. So what I ended up at was a boss that wiped out 2 Dempermen at once. So I had to pay like 3 or 4 of those gems to continue with the game. And the thing is, if you quit, you lost all of that progression you made in that dungeon.
And so you're back to from scratch.
So you lost. So you lost all of those gems, and you have not made it to the end of that dungeon. You have to start all over again.
Yikes. So how much would you say you've roughly put in to the game?
Roughly 13 hours.
But money-wise, because the original Dimpa Men are around like what, $8 to $10, I think.
Yeah, roughly so. I think I put roughly $30 into this point, and I think I'm done with that game.
$40?
30.
Oh
Oh,
man.
wow. I hope they. I mean, I feel like they've gotten a lot of goodwill and built up a pretty healthy fan base on the eShop with these games, and it sounds like they may just burn everyone. I'm curious if they may. I wonder if they're using almost the Japanese market as kind of like a beta testing bed, and it'll kind of adapt for the Western release.
Hmm.
I don't know. Here's the thing. I still feel the need to continue because those characters are so adorable, and I don't want them to leave. And that's kind of the evil curse that Genius Serenity kind of put on me. But at the same time, they're really nickel and diming with this one. It's unheard of, really. And I like those games a lot. I mean, I reviewed 2 of them for Nintendo Force, so of course I like them. But
Yeah.
this one, man, it really burned me really out. It was like, this is such a big bummer.
That's it's depressing. I mean, it's really you're burning your fan base basically.
And it's also kind of disappointing because we've had Sub Steel Diver, Submarine
Sub
Wars,
Wars.
and then
Sub Wars.
also Residual Deal Baseball, who have implemented microtransactions and this free concept in a really smart way. And it sounds like this developer hasn't really looked at those examples and is just deciding to go full on free mobile game route where there's just fees out the yin yang and you just get burned out paying for it, but then instead of actually even playing it.
Yeah.
And they improved the game in some areas over the last game. Like, you can now clearly see the health bars of your opponents. There are some little changes to the battle system, but those are not enough to keep me entertained and keep me going after what I've experienced. So.
Yeah, I'm. It's great to see free-to-play games. I think that would be something like I don't think we've seen any free-to-play games on the Wii U, but this is kind of the nightmare scenario where it's like they're free-to-play, but you're going to be dumping money just to continue on, and you'll lose money if you don't put more money into it and stuff like that.
And you lose your progress if you quit the game.
Yeah.
Have I said that already?
Yes. Well, what's a game you've been enjoying a lot more than the Dimpaman free version?
Let's see what I've been enjoying more. I have to check my list. I downloaded from the Japanese Wii U Virtual Console Super Mario Advance, the best version of the American Super Mario Bros. 2 ever.
Yeah, and that is the Game Boy Advance launch title.
That's correct. Yeah. I've been going through that game a lot, and it's a bit easier than like the regular version because it will save between each level. So if you lose all of your lives, you go back to the level where you last remained. But it feels more like a Mario game because you have a high score, you have these 5 big coins in every level to collect. So there's a lot more to do, I feel, than the original version of that game. And I feel that it's also way more forgiving in that sense.
Yeah, definitely. And it also brings us back to a time when there weren't original Mario games on our handheld system. The Game Boy Advance was all remakes of previous Mario games.
Yeah, that's correct, yeah. I think that is the only one I really put like some serious time into, like Super Mario Advance. The other ones I was not so fussed about.
I put time into Super Mario Advance 2 Super Mario World. I'm pretty sure that. And then Super Mario Advance 3 was... I can't remember, but I remember Super Mario Advance 4 was Super Mario Brothers 3, which was very confusing.
Mm-hmm.
That was correct. I think they somewhere put Yoshi's Island in there. I can't remember.
That's Super Mario Advance 3, I bet. Yeah, and which is the only version you can get on the Wii U, or basically on the eShop, right? They don't have the standalone Yoshi's Island for the Super Nintendo. I'm guessing it has something to do with the FX chip or whatever else that they're having trouble emulating.
Could be. That could very well be. But that game is still so much fun. I love the original Advance. For my time with the Game Boy Advance, if I remember correctly, was mostly spent playing all of the Mega Man Battle Network games.
Oh, aren't one of those games out on the Japanese eShop or?
It's available in Europe and Japan. It's coming
Oh,
out this week in North America.
sweet. The Battle Network games are really cool. I remember playing the second one, I believe, for Game Boy Advance.
That one was, I think, the second one. I think most will consider that the best one. Like the first one was a good start, but the second one is really where most people like kind of stepped in.
Oh.
But beyond that, like another game that came out on the same day was Kuro Kukurin, which is such a like obscure Game Boy Advance game. I don't know how many people remember that game.
Isn't that it's the irritating stick game, right? Where it's kind of spinning around and you have to navigate it through mazes and stuff?
It's pretty much like a stick-based aeroplane that constantly moves with no end, and you have to move it across all of these like weird mazes.
Yeah.
I think there was a GameCube one at some point in Japan that never came over. And, like we only got like the original GBA game, and that is it.
Yeah.
But that game is way shorter than I remember it being, because I still remembered all the levels and how to progress them. So I got through that game like really, really fast. Like I was like, that was short.
Yeah, I think you're just too pro for it, Don, at this point. Your skills have eclipsed the Kuruna.
Well, I still have the original copy, so that might have something to do with that.
Yeah.
But going back then to eShop stuff in Europe and North America, there are 3 games that came out last week, and this one game that comes out this week that I played. The first one was Master Reboot, which is how do I describe it at best? It's a horror exploration game.
And is it
I think that's
2D based? Is it sprite based? I looked this up. I feel like on the eShop.
it's a 3D game. Like it's a sort of cel shaded look. So what the game is all about is, in a far-flung future, like people can upload their memories and like thoughts into like a digital cloud. So if they die, like family can like visit them in the afterlife. The person you play as, it goes horribly wrong with his memories or her memories. You're not even sure if it's a guy or a girl at the beginning. And you have to figure out and piece together what happened in his or her life. And you get childhood memories, you get memories from being at school, and it becomes kind of creepy. It's a really creepy and terrifying atmosphere because you're not kind of sure what's going on next. But the levels are kind of short, so it's pretty much really like memory based, just fragments of somebody's soul, and at the end you kind of figure out the pieces, and that's really the end. It's a game that you won't play again because you kind of know what to expect at that point. But it's roughly 4 hours long, give or take.
So you recommend it?
I do recommend it. Yeah. I played the original on PC and that was really janky. This actually runs really smooth on the Wii U. Like it really does.
It sounds like an intriguing setup. I'll have to look into it more.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's a bit pricey though. I think in America it's $14.99. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a bit pricey. So you might want to wait until like a sale hits the eShop because it won't be for everybody. But it's a fun game. That most definitely the fun game I played out of the 4 games I'm going to talk about now for the rest.
Yeah,
really?
It's all downhill.
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah,
Nintendo had been promoting Wooden Sensei quite a bit, and it looked like a promising 2D platformer, but that's not the case.
Wooden Sensei, I wouldn't necessarily call it a bad game. Like going through the motions, it's actually like it goes by rapidly fast, but it has also kind of the goals that you have to collect everything in level to like get 100% completion, and that's where it kind of, for me, kind of starts falling apart because the enemies are super repetitive, and collecting all of these, it's pretty much alcohol you're collecting for this character because all of his alcohol got stolen. So you have to collect this like 80 bottles of alcohol in this one level, you're like, man, it's kind of too much for me right now. My biggest problem with that game, though, is how the gamepad is used, because there's a special move where you shake down the gamepad, and then it will drop down on enemies and do a slam attack, and that's your most powerful attack, pretty much. But for the rest, it's really repetitive, and you can do it with the buttons, but the combination they've put in for that is really unconventional, because you first press B, and then you must hold the stick down and while pressing Y at the same time, which doesn't really make much sense to me. I don't really like either of these options. And then with the hook shot with the Wii U gamepad, you have to tilt around to shoot it more at the angle, which becomes really, really irritating.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah. I don't really like that. Maybe I'm being too easy on the game, but I don't really like that. But the game's also a bit short. It has 9 levels, so you can play it again and again and go for those high scores. Like every single level has like a fastest time from the developer you can go for, which are almost impossible to do, but they are doable. I got 1 or 2 of them, so you can have some fun with it, but it's not necessarily a game I would highly recommend.
I will avoid.
It sounds irritating enough, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, but there's plenty of platformers on the Wii U. That is something that you don't have
Really
to.
good ones.
Yeah, there's a plethora of quality platformers. So I will not be.
There are enough platformers on the Wii U. I'll give you that.
Period.
Yeah. One game I actually liked a bit more was Ice Cream Server, which comes out this week in Europe and North America. It's a shoot 'em up with like the weirdest premise ever. So this evil broccoli man wants to take over the flavor universe. There are various planets based on foods are located. One on Japanese food, one on ice cream, one on desserts. It's a really weird place, and he wants to take over all of these planets and make them all eat vegetables.
That's a good thing, and I love broccoli. In fact, I just
like
had some
broccoli
the other
too.
night. It
I
was
had,
really
broccoli.
good.
I had some broccoli in a stir fry tonight. The only problem with broccoli is when you're cooking it, it smells like farts. That's the only
But
problem.
it's an evil broccoli.
Yeah. That is a funny setup.
Yeah. So we have 5 playable characters. One is just pretty much an ice cream sandwich shaped Superman. There's a Sailor Moon Rebel or Sailor Twister who pretty much sits on a Twister ice cream. There's a human boy goes Ace who always wants on an ice cream cone. It's a really weird like bunch of characters who all have their special abilities and moves, which are super fun to play as. My only main complaint with the game, there actually are 2. The first one is it's only 6 levels long, which, I mean, you could play the game with those characters and experience it more and more. And some of the characters are really difficult to play as, and they made it intentionally so. So sometimes it becomes really tricky to go through the motions and get through the levels like quickly.
Yeah.
But the problem is the game doesn't have like my bigger problem to the extent it doesn't really have online leaderboards or leaderboards at all.
I find that a lot with Nintendo eShop games. That they're like, go for the high score, and it's like, well, show me what my friends score. Like, you need to have that kind of carrot on a stick to push people on, and it drives me nuts. And I don't know, and that could be Nintendo. I know with the Wii and DS, and I don't know if it's.
I think the developers think that Miiverse is the answer, but I don't think Miiverse is the most elegant option to do so.
Nope.
And I don't really feel that's the case. So for me, like leaderboards are like a big complaint. Despite it being 6 levels, they're still pretty good, and the bosses are fun and everything. The second problem I have is that the frame rate is not exactly like excellent. There are some slowdowns between some of the points, and if it becomes like really crazy, it slows down a lot. But it seems like the developer is currently trying to change that, so it should be in a few weeks from now to be totally fixed. But it's not the biggest issue in the world. I still had a lot of fun with that game.
Cool. Well, I know you have quite a few more games to play. Can you give us a quick rundown so we can get to all of the great feedback?
Sure. So the final eShop game was Super Toy Cars, which is pretty much like a kart racing game with toy cars. Who knew?
Micro Machines. Oh yeah.
Not really. It's more behind the back, really.
Okay.
Yeah, and you have like various like challenges to play through, and they're fine. But there's no online play. There's local play. But the crazy thing is, the PC version of this game does have online play. The Wii U version does not.
Yikes.
And there are also no online leaderboards for your time trials.
So what I was going to bring up is, it's curious, is it these indie developers not putting in the extra effort, or is Nintendo's online development scene just not that great, where it's not worth the hassle for these developers? In combination with, are that many people playing online on Wii U? Because Nintendo forgoes online modes in a lot of its games unless it's Mario Kart or Smash Brothers. So they're not really showing a good example, I feel like.
Yeah, I don't think maybe the API may not be up to snuff for those types of young developers that want to have a leaderboard in their game. But it's like, it's kind of wasted potential, because there's so much more you can do with that game, and when it's easy enough to do on PC, you would think that with the right help from Nintendo, it would be able to implement in the Wii U version as well. But there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it's an alright game. I wouldn't say it's like a perfect game, because when you play in multiplayer locally, you actually have to hold the remote like this, not like this, like this.
Okay, that's weird.
And you have to control it with the D-pad like this.
Oh my goodness.
That doesn't make sense. Listeners, if you're an audio person, Don was just showing us, he's holding the Wii remote in his hand essentially upside down. His index finger on the directional pad.
It's vertical, basically. Like if you're playing, I don't know, like a flight stick. Yeah.
Yeah. And you pretty much move automatically if you're using the remote, which is another weird thing.
Huh.
But quickly going for the other games, I played Yokai Watch 2, which is the sequel to Yokai Watch, who might come to North America because Level 5 is being really vague about that.
Yeah, I'm guessing it will. There's been talk about the anime coming to North America as well.
Yeah, I think another Level 5 franchise anime is also coming to North America pretty soon. Like the mech franchise, Little Battlers, is getting an anime in North America.
Yeah.
But that game is pretty fun, even more fun than the original, and has much more variety. You go to different places, it's a lot of fun. Another thing I've been playing is Transformers Rise of the Darkspark on 3DS, which is surprisingly fun. It's a strategy game from WayForward based somehow on Transformers. And when you are on the map, it has pixel art.
Ooh. Nice. And WayForward's known. Well. Yeah, they're known for their pixel art and hand-drawn 2D art.
Yeah, but if you actually battles, it's a weird 3D-esque thing. So. I played also on Wii U One Piece Unlimited World R, which I actually really liked. Like the last One Piece games were kind of terrible. In particular, Romance Dawn on 3DS, which was this weird action type game with turn-based RPG elements. And this is pretty much pure action, like straightforward crossing through levels, defeating baddies, going from point A to point B. It's actually really, really fun to play.
It looks really pretty as well from the trailers I've seen.
It's both on 3DS and Wii U. I played both versions. I would recommend, if you're going for the 3DS one, you might need a Circle Pad Pro, because the controls are not the best on 3DS. But if not, just buy it on Wii U. It's quite excellent on there. And last thing is, I played Persona Q, which is pretty much Atrian Odyssey meets Persona, and that's a match made in heaven.
Ooh. And that just got, at least for North America, I don't know about Europe, got a release date. I believe it's like November 25th. of this year.
We're getting it to 21st, I believe.
Okay, so a few days early there for European viewers. Cool. I'm really excited about that game. And thanks for all of the impressions there, Don, for all those games.
Hey, got for all of them.
Yeah, definitely a lot of good recommendations in there and some games to steer clear of and some games to look forward to. It's always really cool to hear about the Japanese games. And please let us know what you're playing out there. You can email us at show@nfmagazine.com. You can always leave a comment right here on our YouTube page underneath this video. And with that, I'm going to hand the keys over to Noah, who will take us through last week's feedback.
First up, we're going to go through the emails, and our first email comes from Tara, who's been contributing some really great pieces of feedback, and I'm excited to hear what my co-hosts have in response to this one. Tara wrote, I hope that Fatal Frame comes here. I really love the series, and having a new installment would be awesome. Nintendo's push for mature games and a wider portfolio just seems to me like a grasping magic carp on the beach of life. Gasping magic carp. In all honesty, Nintendo needs to stop with the consoles and just focus on handhelds. That's where they shine. That's where the pure platinum lies. Their handhelds could be so much more if they just focused on that. It's sad whenever I see them working on their consoles. If they want to make games for consoles, they should let the bigger platforms take them. That's one thing. Put that away.
Okay.
As for the Wii had battery, I've heard a lot of people saying it wears off way too quickly. I kind of agree with Noah too. Yes. Why didn't they include a better battery? Because they want you to buy a new one. Nintendo does this all the time. Hell, all the game companies do it all the time. They sell subpar stuff with the machine, so you'll get the better stuff. It's ridiculous, but it's one way that they make their money. And then Tara continues, what I've been playing this week besides Tamagotchi Life is Assassin's Creed 4, which I haven't played yet. But it took me over a year to get through the train wreck that was Assassin's Creed 3, so only now am I starting it. It reminds me of Assassin's Creed 2 in a lot of ways, 4 not 3, but I loathe ship combat a lot. Anywhere, take care, guys. Great show, as always. So, do you guys agree with Tara, who said just do handhelds? That's where the platinum is.
Can I first start with the Fatal Frame thing?
The what?
The Fatal Frame comment.
Oh, Fatal Frame, yeah, go ahead.
I'm a super great fan of the series, and I don't know what the frick Nintendo is doing with that series. Since they are publishing that for Tecmo Koei. Like, the fourth one only released in Japan. Okay, that is made by Suda51, one of the developers that people really loved back then, and you're not bringing that over. Hey, fair enough. Go you. Then they make a remake of Fatal Frame 2 or Project 02, as it's known in Europe.
And Europe got it.
And Europe got it for some reason. We got Project 02 Wii Edition. It's like in the final year of Wii, no less. We got a swan song for our console, while America got nothing. So hey, yeah. I'm gonna rub it all in, but here's my problem. America didn't get that, so Europe does get the remake, but North America doesn't. That is very interesting. And now we're getting
Americans don't like horror games. Just look at the box office and all of these movies that do amazing every September and October.
But then we come to Fatal Frame 5, which comes out in less than 2 months already in Japan. Like, they announced it all of a sudden in a trailer. Like, no fanfare, just saying, hey, there's Fatal Frame 5 coming out pretty soon, guys. I hope you're going to buy it. And now we're getting back into the astray of, like, so, is it coming to the West? Is it coming to the West? Is it coming to the West?
Who knows?
It's like, well done, Nintendo. You're doing a really well job with this franchise. I'm so really proud of you.
I love the passive aggressiveness and the sarcasm directed at yes.
Yes, more.
I will jump on to the console argument. I agree that Nintendo should have a unified system, but I think that unified system there should be variations. So there should be a home console and a handheld and maybe like a tablet middle ground or whatever, or some kind of docking station for the handheld. So I believe there should be some kind of home console because I do love playing my Nintendo games on my big screen. But yes, I agree that shouldn't be a divided development platform and consumer platform. They should unify
I have a different take on this. I think that they should both remain separate forever. Because once you are putting handheld games on a console and console games on a handheld, you're blurring them. What makes them both special?
Yeah, that's fine with me. Just one system.
I wonder if there was one system, if that means would we get as many games as we get combined from first parties on a console and a handheld, or would they just kind of dial back the production?
The problem is that they're gonna make games that are either have the console mentality or the handheld mentality. So the other side wouldn't be satisfied anyway. So why would you combine them when you get more money out of two separate business parts?
I just feel like everything's going the opposite way, where you're having things where, I mean, look at the PlayStation Vita is not the best because it's not selling, but every other platform is trying to merge and be available on all your systems. If you buy it on iOS, you get it on your iPhone or your iPad, which are both mobile, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Apple slowly carrying that over to their laptops and everything. I wouldn't be surprised to see Microsoft have some kind of Windows type thing go with that. But I think, Noah, overall games may be reduced in general, but you get some new IPs because you don't need a Mario team for handheld and a Mario team for console. You don't need dual teams working on stuff.
But they're not dual teams. That's a wrong understanding, because there always have been one team that makes 3D Mario games, one team that makes 2D Mario games. You don't have separate teams. The teams just work on two different experiences made for those handhelds and consoles. That makes more sense.
That the 2D Marios are basically the same except for multiplayer on the handheld and consoles would be my argument. You don't need to have two different 2D Marios.
But that's the only part of the Mario franchise that is bullcrap.
Okie dokie. Let's move on. The battery, I agree with. I have a long-standing, a decades-old, well, at least 1 decade old bone to pick about Nintendo nickel and diming, and whenever it happens, I just gripe about it and we move on. But guess what? Hiawatha emailed about the same thing, the battery pack that we talked about last week. And Hiawatha wrote in, I bought the 4,000 milliampere hour Nyko Power Pack battery for the Wii U gamepad. After it started to have problems staying charged because of faulty connectors, I sent it back to be replaced. Nyko sent me a 2600 mAh U-Boost external battery to use in the meantime, quote unquote, until they could send me a replacement power pack. After waiting for a long time, I contacted Nyko, and they told me that they could not replace the power pack. They said they could send me a product of equal value instead. I asked them to just send the faulty battery back. They had to check and see if they'd not already disposed of it first. Now, that's not the greatest customer service story. After hearing that, Hiawatha continues, I just went ahead and bought the 2550, this is the third number to throw out here, milliamperes per hour battery directly from Nintendo instead. So the Nintendo battery. Eventually, Nyko was able to send my original power pack back to me, the one that was 4,000. Eventually, and since it has a higher capacity than Nintendo's battery, it worked. I now have both the internal and external Nyko battery packs connected into or onto my gamepad, which I don't quite understand. One of you two might explain this to me.
The internals inside, the external is probably like a cover thing on the outside of the back.
Oh, okay, yeah, I have seen battery packs that are like that before.
Yeah.
Continuing, and I have the official Nintendo battery ready if I ever end up needing it. I have been able to play games, watch movies, and leave the gamepad off the charger, just like leaving the phone off the hook, without even thinking about it for days at a time. He did not write that phone off the hook thing, by the way. The only thing I did make sure was that it didn't stay on too long, was I set the sleep timer to turn the Wii U off after an hour of non-use.
There you go, Noah. There's your battery solution. Just... Hiawatha's got it.
Buy several batteries, send a couple back, hope for the best.
Hiawatha is ready for the battery apocalypse.
I never trust the battery packs.
The third-party ones?
Yeah.
No.
They have the shifty eyes.
Let's get into the comments that were posted on our video at our channel, youtube.com/nfmagazine. SNES Mapper wrote in, "Good job, guys. I'm a new second-year sub to your magazine, trying to track previous issues in physical form. Keep up the good work, and I would like to know your thoughts on Nintendo picking up Devil's Third. Do you think they should keep going for these quote-unquote obscure, somewhat low-budget games to put their money into or put their money into other things?"
So first of all, it is not a low budget game because like THQ originally put a ton of money into this game, and they went bankrupt. So no surprise there. But I don't see this game selling well at all. For the simple reason that I don't see an audience for that game there on Wii U. It's great to have such games in your portfolio though, and I really commend Nintendo for sticking to their guns and giving Wii U the love that it deserves in their eyes. But I don't know. I don't think it will sell particularly well, and I don't have really any thoughts of the game because we really haven't had an opportunity to really play it.
Yeah, that's true. I'm all for it. I think third party is, especially North American and European third party, Western third party, that ship has sailed for the 3DS and Wii U. So Nintendo has to do second party games and fund these types of games to have some diversity in their lineup. It's not the ideal situation, but they've got to do something. And I think not only should they do more of this, especially with well-known creators like Itagaki, but I think they really need to start either A, licensing out some of their franchises to indie developers, or start funding some indie games to get some exclusives. They have to do more of this when you're bleeding third-party support. You got to find other games some way to complement your titles.
Do you remember the GameCube era? I
Yes.
mean, that era had some fantastic like weird games on the GameCube. Like Donkey Kong from Namco was amazing. Gosh, there's and like with the EA, like EA still backed Nintendo back then, and they put Mario and SSX on tour and NBA Street. It's like the weirdest things ever. That period was fun. I really hope that Nintendo would do stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with you, Evan, in answering SNES Mapper's question. I would totally say yes. Please put your money. If you don't have enough teams or resources to fill out the calendar, the release schedule, please either pull a Sony and help fund indie titles, or if you can get more second-party titles, they're a little bit larger, by all means. I am all for it. And I can understand Don's opinion that this game might not do well. We've certainly seen other games from these folks not do as well because maybe they just don't click, or maybe they don't have the right marketing. But I think it looks pretty cool, and I'm definitely looking forward to it.
And it has ambitious online multiplayer, which Nintendo needs. So,
which nobody will play in 6 months.
Well, we'll see.
Don's just angry. Don has taken up residence. Next
I'm always being kind of reasonable to Nintendo, but it doesn't seem much sense for the portfolio. But if it works out, it works out. We'll see.
Yeah, I think your realistic take is isn't unfounded. Our next comment is from Andy Lapp. That was hilarious when Noah mentioned bacteria and Lakes as his first response.
There were a lot of comments about that, by the way.
I thought that was great. Thank you. I'm glad you liked it. I think that bacteria.
What is this about?
Well, we were talking about how the next Fatal Frame game is set, as Evan typed it, on a large mountain next to a large lake, or something very direct.
Gee whiskers. It sounds like every other Fatal Frame game.
Well, and then Evan said that water is going to play a role in making you scared, and I thought, well, one of the things that's really scary in lakes is bacteria. And apparently that was not the first thing in everybody else's mind, but I thought that it was pretty accurate.
Holy wow.
I feel like so many kids, like, if you talk to them about when they're kid and they got in lakes, they'd be like, even though sharks aren't in lakes, they're like, oh my gosh, there's a shark or there's a
Piranha.
alligator, and I just picture baby Noah being like, the bacteria. Oh no! Like,
You're talking about me being realistic. Damn. Wow.
It's a big mountain. It's a big lake. All right, and life continues. I was really happy to hear about the sales in Mario Kart 8. I thought the sales would go around 750,000 units, but I was surprised when I heard 885,000 units were sold. But I was disappointed about Tamagotchi Life, thinking it would go to at least 250,000 units. This is something that our news bits covered. At the intro of last week's episode, Andy Lab continues, I am one of those people who bought the Mario Kart 8 Wii U bundle a week after the release of the bundle, which I'm really curious on the sales of that bundle. And I'm very impressed with Mario Kart 8. I didn't get Tamagotchi Life yet, but I did get the demo version of it, and I was impressed as well. Hopefully I'll get that soon as well. Continuing on, unfortunately I still didn't get Shovel Knight, which is a shame, but I'm planning on buying it for Wii U. I should look in about Guacamelee, unless, of course, you find yourself agreeing with Evan more often than me. Andy Lab, you shouldn't get the game. I also bought Pikmin 3, first time in the franchise, and I really like it. I love the graphics and the controls via Wii Remote and Nunchuck. I was confused playing with the gamepad controller, and I also love the graphics on Zelda Wind Waker HD. Man, I tell you what, Andy Lapp went all out and got a library with the purchase of the Wii U bundle, unless you actually just got that bundle on top of an existing Wii U, which is something that Don was telling us about, that he has pretty much every Wii U model that's out there. Right?
Well, I only have one per region, so.
Oh, okay. You got to step it up, Don. I don't know about your level of commitment. You need to get all the colors and the different bundles.
But there's only 2 colors. I have them both.
All right. And the continues, I bought Donkey Kong Country Returns 3D, and I really like the challenge each level has. But as Evan said, it is hard to see Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong even with my 3DS XL when they're in the background. They just get too tiny. About the Wii U hardware, I'm satisfied with the 1080p resolution, but like Noah mentioned, yes! Evan, we found someone who likes us both. I should get the extended battery pack on the website. I actually didn't know about it until you guys mentioned it. Andy Lap.
Thanks for the feedback.
Yeah, agreed. Always great to hear. Nintendo Dude GCN wrote an awesome episode! I always love when you guys have special guests. It makes an already great show even better. Thank you very much.
Yay.
Nintendo Dude. Just want to say thanks to Lucas for the sneak preview on issue number 10. Looking forward to it even more now that I know Hyrule Warriors is on the cover. The hype Nintendo has been building for this game since E3 with all these new character reveals is really getting me interested in the title now. Also wanted to mention that I recently got NF issue number 1 in the mail, and I'm proud to say my NF magazine collection is complete. I hope it continues to stay complete, as I hope to subscribe to and support NF magazine for years to come. Excellent.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
As a Dynasty Warriors fan, I'm so much looking forward to Hyrule Warriors. And here's the troubling part for me. It comes out August 14 in Japan, and I will be at Gamescom. So even though I have the Wii U to play it on, I can't play it because I'm at the other country at a convention that is not even interesting to me.
Oh, you live a rough life, Don, going to Gamescom and getting all these games and playing through them and reading Japanese.
But I did buy. Okay, this is why I did buy the treasure box from Japan.
Ooh, that's cool. You get like a Triforce clock, don't you?
A Triforce clock and the scarf that Link wears in the game.
Ooh, I like this scarf idea. I could use a Link scarf.
Kizaki Project wrote, and I would get this Fatal Frame game if it comes to the US. I never played any of them, but Spirit Camera looked cool, and I was interested until the review showed up. I hope that the Wii U
No, Spirit Camera is not cool. It's the worst of them.
Well, and yeah, he added that until the reviews showed up. He's not interested. Kizaki Project continued that I hope that the Wii U version, the Wii U game comes out, maybe eShop only, but still you don't want to get your hopes up. But they are desperate for software, so why not?
You would think.
Well, Japan doesn't seem to think so.
Kisaki continues, I'm kind of losing my steam playing the Zeldas. I never finished. Seasons is okay, but not great. Still haven't started Ages. I guess Minish Cap and Link's Awakening are so good, it makes it hard to play more mediocre 2D entries. How do you guys feel about the Oracle games? Should I finish Seasons? Should I take a break and try Ages?
I've never played the Oracle games, so
Those two are the only ones that I really remember because I love those two games to death. I would say Seasons and Agents are actually very different games from one another. If you don't feel like finishing Seasons, I would suggest that Ages is try because they're both very different in their design choices. And maybe go back to Seasons at another time when you really feel like it.
I've always wondered, I haven't played through them either, and I always want to know what's the right one to play first. But it sounds like that.
I don't remember which one because I'm not very good with titles. One is the more puzzly one. One focuses more on fighting enemies. So it depends on what you like.
Okay. I'm more of a puzzles guy when it comes to Zelda. We have a comment from someone we have not heard from before, as far as I can recall. The Seventh Experiment. That's always exciting. Welcome to the show and as a contributor to the show. Seventh Experiment wrote in, "Hi guys, kind of new to the show, but I just wanted to say I love your magazine. I really enjoyed this episode too. You guys are really funny, and I think I'm gonna begin watching you guys regularly. I can't tell you how excited I am to hear about the next issue's cover featuring Hyrule Warriors. Totally agree when you guys talked about the beautiful covers of the magazine. I've got to say the Mario Kart 8 one is probably my favorite so far that I own. And Noah, on a side note, I adore those figurines you have behind you in the video. Thank you. It's worth it for me to get them there. I'm glad to hear that. Seventh Experiment continues. Loved hearing you guys discuss Donkey Kong Country Returns 3D, as I too just downloaded that for one of my for my platinum status gift on Club Nintendo. Good to hear I'm not the only one who thought that Donkey Kong was a tad bit hard to see when he is flung into the background. Seventh Experiment.
Well, if it comes to beautiful covers, I still love the first one because that one was actually what I wrote a cover review for. But that's kind of nostalgic to me because Fire Emblem Awakening is still my favorite game on the 3DS and still one of my favorite games in general. So that will always have like a special place in my heart.
It's really cool to just hear people's different opinions on what their favorite cover is, because Shovel Knight is my favorite, I believe, by far.
Yeah.
Oh no, we're so alike in the end.
We're just really boring, as it turns out. We talk about all this strife, but it's just not there.
Evan, do you have any figurines in your house?
I'm not much of a figurine person, although I do have it's very small. If you look right above my thumb, I've got a Mario and his cart little figure right behind there, above the head.
I have so many. I won't tell you what my favorite is. I can show you what my least favorite is. This is from Agnes from Bravely Default, from the European Special Edition. Look at his face. Describe it to the listeners how horrible this face is.
Well, the camera doesn't want to focus on it. It's so bad. It's kind of blurry, but it looks a little consternated, a little concerned, is what I'm getting from that.
To me, the eyes look pretty botched, but I didn't play Bravely Default, so...
It looks really terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, not liking that.
Horrible painting job, too.
Really, and that's so disappointing because you guys got the really cool collector's edition for Bravely Default, which of course did not come out over here. And that figurine was one of the things, like, if I could have gotten that figurine, I totally would have ordered the collector's edition. But no, Europe gets all the collector's editions. Europe gets the games before we do.
You should be happy. That figurine is really terrible.
Well, I got burned on my Ganondorf.
For Wind Waker, right?
Yeah, there's some really bad paint jobs going on there. So you're not alone in your sadness. But hey, it was pretty cheap for a collector's edition, so I guess it's okay. That is it for the feedback, though.
Thank you, Noah.
Really long episode. Thank you to everybody who takes the time to subscribe to us and then also write in. We really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much for going through that feedback. We can't wait to see what we get in for next week's episode. Don't forget, though, you can subscribe to us on YouTube. You can subscribe to us on iTunes for the audio version. You can also review us there. Please take a moment to review us, give us your honest feedback so we can make this show better. Finally, if you want to hear what we think or see what we're saying about games off the show, and 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, you can follow us on Twitter. Noah is at This Is Noah. Don is at Nintendon. I am at Evan Campbell. And then finally, the official NF Magazine Twitter account is at Nintendo4. So that wraps up.
Can I do some final plugging still?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So you can find me at various places, like these guys earlier mentioned. I'm at Nintendo World Report. Go Nintendo. my YouTube channel, which is at Nintendo1 and at Twitter. Usually you can find my Twitter most of the stuff that I do because I usually post them there, which is a pretty convenient thing, I feel.
Definitely. And if you see any videos about eShop games you have in the past, they're probably from Don here. He does a great job with video coverage of 3DS and Wii U titles.
I currently pushed the playlists together. It's over 300 videos now, only from these titles.
There you go.
And thank you, Don, for staying up so late. It's very early in the morning over there.
It's 5:15 a.m. No
Good
worries.
start to the day. Good start to the day. You're ready to go.
Hey.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us, Don. We can't wait to have you back again. And Noah, thanks for showing up. We appreciate it.
Well, Toad keeps threatening he's going to hit me.
Guacamelee is a good game.
Yeah, don't you forget that, Evan. I don't care what your final review is. My review in my heart is the one that matters.
That's all that's important. The games you like and love. If you got game love in your heart, let it out, everyone.
Yes.
But that'll do it for episode 28, Battery Powered. Be sure to come back next week for all the latest on Nintendo news and games. I'm Evan Campbell, and this is the NF Show. Thanks for listening and watching.
Goodbye. I'm a European.